Hi, I'm Jessica Russo Scherr, and in my art classroom, one of the biggest questions kids ask is, how do I make something look three-dimensional? I want it to look 3D. And one of the coolest ways to do that is through chiaroscuro. And I'll show you how to do it in this video.
I will teach you how to shade a sphere with chiaroscuro and value. Chiaroscuro is the light and darkness of an object, and there are 5 areas to it. First, you have to establish your light source, and then you could identify these 5 areas as highlight, midtone, deep shadow, reflected light, and cast shadow. When we shade an object to have those areas, we get a sense of three-dimensionality. But we also have to consider the value scale. We need a range of values from light to dark and continuous shading.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we discussed earlier, you will take a circular object like a cup, or if you have tape, a bowl, something around this size, and you will be drawing your sphere. Then you'll need a straight edge. If you have a ruler, great. If you don't have a ruler, then use anything that's straight. A book would work well. And draw the table across the page in a relatively horizontally straight line, and don't draw the line going through the sphere, okay? Once you have that, then you're going to be ready for shading. So when you're shading, you're going to be starting off with the highlight area. Obviously, the highlight area doesn't have any value to it. You're going to be using a regular pencil, like a number 2 pencil, or any of the ones that are the mid-value pencils, like a B pencil. And then you start shading in, leaving a little bit of a white area. And some basic shading techniques are doing either really, really small circles with very light pressure, or you can do almost like a star pattern over and over and over again, or like scribbling. And as you move from highlight into midtone, you're going to press a little bit harder with the pencil, still pressing quite lightly. Okay, and you're going to make this transition as smooth as you can. The vocabulary for this is a continuous tone. It's really important that you have slow transition from light to dark, so you don't have stripes. You want it to go from light to dark in a smooth transition, so it's quite natural. So once you feel like you've gone as dark as you can with your mid-value pencil, I was using a B pencil, you can move into a 3B pencil, or a slightly darker B pencil if you have one. If you don't have one, you're just going to have to work with the pencil that you have to press a little bit harder. The softer the pencil, the higher the number of the B is. So this is a step up, so it gets slightly darker. I'm still using those circular patterns or star patterns to create the shading. And as I move from highlight to mid-tone to deep shadow, I am going to press harder and overlap. If you find that you have lines in there, you want to start turning your paper in different directions so the lines overlap and you get this nice, smooth, continuous tone. You don't want it to have stripes. Notice I'm holding my pencil not like I'm taking a math test, but I'm holding it a little bit further up so I can have a very loose way of drawing. I'm trying to keep my hand off of the paper so I'm not pressing down on it, and I'm also not creating like smudge marks with that. If you do find that your hand is creating smudge marks, you could just take an extra piece of paper and put it underneath your hand. Remember, you're going to have to leave an area for reflected light. It's not a perfectly light light, but it's a little bit light, like a value 2 or 3. Now, if you have an even darker pencil, then for the deep shadow, you would move into that. I have a 6B here. And I would move into that for the deep shadow, making sure I leave a little bit of space for the reflected light. And you would continue these shadings across the sphere. So it would be highlight, mid-tone, deep shadow, reflected light. And then don't forget, you would also have the cast shadow, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. So you would continue this process until you have the whole sphere up like the example that I have. And the cast shadow, what you want to do is you want to draw almost a straight line from the bottom and then curve it out in a U. It's like a very narrow U. And when you're shading it, it's going to be as dark as the deep shadow. So you would use your darkest pencil if you have a darker pencil. When you move to the outer part, you can go a little bit lighter and press just a tad bit lighter. And that contrast between the reflected light, deep shadow, and cast shadow will really help create the three-dimensionality of your sphere, okay? If you have time, you can try to apply some of these same shading techniques to the background. My suggestion is to look at the example that I'm providing and go a little bit darker on the highlight area in the background, so you have contrast between the highlight and the background, okay? So these are the steps that to create chiaroscuro to make it look like the example.
Work around the whole surface of the paper to get even, balanced, continuous tone. Remember these key points. The way reflected light curves around the sphere. The shape of the cast shadow is thin, which makes us believe we're looking at it on a table. The cast shadow is darkest near the sphere. And keep your strokes light and try to follow the curve of the sphere to make them look round and three-dimensional. This can also be applied to other shapes. It doesn't have to be only applied to a sphere.
So here's a few tips before you start your drawing. Make sure you adjust the pressure on your pencil. Press lighter in the lighter areas, darker in the darker areas, but also add more layers in the darker areas and slowly build up those layers by moving your pencil or rotating your paper in different directions. Also, just keep in mind that you want to have smooth, continuous tone or transition between those value zones between each of the 5 areas of chiaroscuro, or the 4 areas that are on the sphere and the one that's on the table. Best of luck. Happy drawing.